Hey, happy Hopeful Friday to you. I'm out here kind of in my shirt sleeves. Man, a week ago today we were like below zero. And here it's, I think, in the 60s right now. So crazy. May not be quite that warm. I didn't check a while ago. It was 50 something earlier, but just amazing. I think as Will Rogers said, if you don't like the Oklahoma weather, just wait a minute. It'll change. And that's so true. I want to come by and talk to you guys a little bit about the Bible, the Book of Ruth. I was just reading that on a devotion this week, and was really taken by a couple things in it. If you're not familiar with the story, um, it's Ruth. Well, let me start from the beginning. Naomi was Ruth's mother-in-law, so they had a famine in their land, so they couldn't produce. There wasn't enough food to go around. This, that, and the other. So they moved to what they would call a foreign country, to the Moabites, and they were able to make do over there for a few years. But her husband died in the process. Both her sons took Moabite women for wives, and they both died within like 10 years or something like that. So you wind up with Naomi, the mother, and two daughters-in-law, and all of them are widowed. And so they decide to go. They hear that there is food back in, or that the famine is gone from the land they come from originally, um, where Naomi was from, and they decided to move back. And she told her daughters-in-law, "Look, stay here with your people. You don't need to come with me, because I'm going back to my country." But she was old, and so Ruth, one of her daughters-in-law, said, "Hey, I'll go with you. I want to take care of you. Your people will be my people, and I want to go with you." She looked at her like a mother, and so she did, and she wound up uh, going out to harvest, or follow the harvesters to pick up grain so that she could feed herself and her mother-in-law, because her mother-in-law was up in years. So she was taking care of this lady, and the harvesters would actually leave grain. They figured out what she was doing, who she was, and so they left extra grain for her to gather. And so her mother-in-law started questioning her, "How are you getting all this grain?" Because usually you would just pick up small amounts. She was picking up whole heads. And she said, "Well, the man's a really nice man, and he told his young men and women to leave this extra for me." She knew what was going on. And so mother-in-law Naomi gets kind of the idea that, hey, I know this guy. What's his name? So she finds out, and come to find out that he's a really upstanding character, and blah blah blah. And so what happens is, she tells Ruth, she says, "I want you to do what I say." And so she goes out. She has her put on a nice dress. She has her show up at the right time. She has her do some certain things while she's with Boaz, the man that was being very kind to her. And it winds up that they get married. And that marriage produced, in the lineage down the line, produced David, which produced Jesus at a later point. So that's all kind of historical. But what I was honed in on was the fact that Naomi spoke some words at a very opportune time. So she gave these words to Ruth, and what I would like to say is that they were well placed words. Okay, she had her timing right, she had her facts right, she had Ruth's best interest at heart. Uh, she was really listening to the Spirit of God direct her in this, and so she was placing these words. You and I can do that. We can find things that we can say that would be encouraging to people. We can find things and have opportunities for those well placed words. I've been on the receiving end of that, and there's nothing like it. I mean, you go on for really days afterwards, if not weeks and months and years, and you look back on that interaction and you say, "Man, that just really made me feel good that they said that." And I'll tell you, being on the other end of it and giving out some of that advice and placing some of those words yourself in someone else's life, that feels even better than on the receiving side. I mean, you can't imagine how good that feels to see the softening and the look in someone's eye when you hit on the right thing and you give them some encouragement, and that's really what they needed for that time. I mean, that just really bolstered them. And how I feel whenever I do that, it's undescribable. So anyway, this is a hope-filled message as usual. I just want to come by and wish you guys a happy Hope-Filled Friday. And to, if you haven't read Ruth, it's only like 4 chapters long. It's a really short book in the Old Testament. Read it. It's really interesting. I just gave you the quick, the quick and dirty version, as Dave Ramsey would say. But anyway, we're getting ready for have a new year. Turn over some things, man. Start some stuff that you wouldn't normally do. Learn something that you haven't known before. Go out and put yourself out there. Take a risk, take a chance, and be that person for somebody. All right. Hope you guys have a great weekend and a very prosperous new year, and we'll catch you down the road.